Oh my God.
Oh, we are recording. We are on.
On.
We are on. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dave LaRoe, and I have the honor of having my dear friend and fellow teacher, Lisa DanylChuk, with us. Today, we'll be discussing yoga for trauma. She's the author of Yoga for Trauma Recovery. Great book. Highly recommend it. And yeah, and she has a upcoming training that's coming up next week, yeah, pretty soon. So Lisa, thank you for joining in today. And how about you give us a little background on yourself and let people know who you are and what you, yeah, what to expect, I guess, for your training.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Dave. And it's funny because I was just saying this. I feel like we're like passing each other in the halls at Yoga Works, and I have this idea that like someone out there in Instagram land is gonna it's gonna be those same people that we used to walk by in the halls of the yoga studio. So
Right.
I hope that's the case. And hi to
Yeah.
anyone who's ever taken my class or done Dave's and my class back to back, or
Now we're just passing each other by in this virtual world, right?
now we're just zooming by.
We're in the matrix.
Exactly. So a little bit about me. I taught yoga for many years at Yoga Works, and so have also been a therapist for a long time now. And really, it was kind of early on that I got an interest in yoga for trauma recovery, just through my own personal experiences. Right around the time I was starting at Yoga Works in Los Angeles, my family, we lost my brother really suddenly, really shitty. And yoga was the thing for me that really helped. And I was already studying yoga and I was already studying therapy. And it was just like all these questions came up for me as I was having my own experience. So that was like in 2002. So it's been almost 20 years since then. And since then, I've just been collecting information, drawing together bridges and gaps of like, why do so many of us feel like yoga can have such a profound healing impact? And so that's what led to books and this training program, and pretty much everything I do professionally at this point is around teaching and supporting people in yoga and using yoga for trauma recovery.
That's awesome. And how long have you been doing it?
So, I mean, it started about 20 years ago, and I've been teaching this online training program for about 7 years now. Before it was online, I was teaching in, as you probably remember, yoga studios and psychology conferences, and in a lot of different formats and to a lot of different groups of people. I also, for about 10 years, was teaching yoga in just a lot of different settings, like schools and juvenile halls and prisons and places where, even at the time, I mean, if I'm thinking back to like 2005 or something, we wouldn't have said like, this is yoga for trauma. I wouldn't have used trauma to describe what people were going through, because I just think, our evolution of trauma, of how we understand it, has definitely developed and changed. But it was just in all those places where there's a lot of trauma, right? Where people are coping with life, and I think really can benefit from so many of these things that yoga has to offer. Not that it's the same for every person, but yeah, I was teaching in a lot of different settings, recovery centers, stuff like that.
Cool. And then, I mean, are there other places, I mean, as far as like, I mean, outside of yoga, do people go to as far as, because I mean, I think we were talking about this earlier, how the work on trauma is fairly new, right? And because there wasn't really a diagnosis for it, back in the day, where when people were coming home from the war and they were dealing with PTSD, or I mean, they just labeled it, whatever it was.
Shell shock. Yeah.
Shell shock. Yeah.
Kind of the early inklings of PTSD was shell shock, and they would see, and you can see pictures like older newspapers or documents of the way someone's face looked when they were going off to war, and then you look at their face on the way back, and you can see this profound change. And the eyes are the window to the soul and or to your nervous system, and you could really see how people had been impacted. So it is relatively a young field for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you see it like when it, when, I know you're not teaching, yoga now in the rooms or anything like in the studios or anything right now, but um, was there ways to, identify it when people were coming onto their mats or in their practice or, things like that?
I always just like to assume that everyone's going through something in life, whether or not they consider that traumatic, whether or not it is or not. In a yoga room, it's not really our place to diagnose, but I kind of make that assumption that everyone's kind of as well as their package, that everyone's going through something. And I do think there are some things we can look for in terms of like, not to get too technical, but like hyperarousal or hypoarousal, like is your nervous system stuck on or stuck off? And we could use yoga terms to describe that too. But it's interesting because I've definitely had, there's a workshop I taught over in Mill Valley at Yoga Works in person. And this was a yoga for trauma workshop. And we kind of had some time to go and check in. And the person who looked the most collapsed, and there are reasons for this that make sense, the most like depressed, tamasic, stuck to the floor, when you asked how people were feeling internally, she was feeling through the roof. She was feeling like anxious, agitated, right? But the presentation was really different. So I think there are things we can look for. We can look at, people's overall demeanor, their energy, their posture. We can make guesses about how they're feeling internally. But we can't really know 100%, and that makes it hard. And a lot of people kind of assume if someone's triggered, they're going to be, running, breaking the walls and like,
Yeah.
making a big scene. But a trigger could be dissociative, where someone's kind of shutting down, or it could be very alive inside, but not very big, not very demonstrative. So there's not like a, oh, this person's cheeks turned purple, right? Or like some super obvious indicator that we can all go by.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Want to tell us a little bit more about your training and what people can expect for?
Yes. So this training is definitely like my baby. Like I said, it's been online since 2015. One of my goals has been to support people who are interested in trauma-informed yoga and who feel like I think there's a lot of people, maybe not so much where we're from in the San Francisco Bay Area, but internationally, who feel like I'm the only one doing this, or they feel more alone, kind of like I did early on, even though now I know there were a lot of other people doing it. It felt sort of like I'm the only one around here who's talking about this or interested in it. So I really wanted to create a space where people like that could connect and learn and support each other and learn from each other. So that's what this training is. It's everything I've gathered over the last 20 years in an organized and sequential and thoughtful way. We go through 8 weeks. We talk about, setting things up with a foundation of health first. We talk about what trauma is and define it extensively. We talk about somatic psychotherapy in our nervous systems. We connect that to yoga philosophy. We talk about yoga sequences and breath work and how that fits in. We talk about trauma-informed practices, things you might do as a teacher or a one-on-one facilitator. We also talk about some more advanced things like dissociation and shame resilience. And then everyone in the program in the last 2 weeks does a research, not experiment, because that would be a lot of work, does a research kind of paper or question, and then completes a practicum. So both of those things at the end are very doable and scalable. They're not like massive undertakings, but they're ways to connect what we're doing to the current research, to connect what we're learning to practice, because it's really easy to take in a bunch of information and then go like, well, what do I do? So that's kind of the overview of the program. And people in the program are yoga teachers, studio owners, mental health professionals, some other just like allied health professions, some folks in medicine, and in other kind of healing practices, massage therapists, Reiki, things like that. So yeah, I think I'm really proud of it just being an amazing group of human beings and of people who are helping healing work in the world. And I think of everyone in there as like a kind of a pioneer, because we're doing something that, like you pointed out, we haven't known about trauma really all that long in the grand scheme of things. And yoga for trauma, even more recent, like that's an even more of a recent phenomenon or understanding. So I hope that everyone in this program, the way I see it, we're kind of creating hopefully a wake of healing behind, or an opportunity for healing across the world, really, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think we all could use some healing. Right.
Oh, for sure. And this whole last year and a half, people are like, is this trauma? And I'm like, well, does your life feel threatened? And are you feeling this and that? I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
there's a ton. There's a ton of grief and loss and all kinds of that stuff. So I do think these tools are, as important as ever.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely leave a link on this, to this video, but is there a place where people can actually find you and connect with you?
Yeah, totally. So howwecanheal.com is the website with all the information on the training program. There's a bunch of free mental health resources there too, so please feel free to share. There is some recorded trainings on there, lots of frequently asked questions, things like that. To connect with me, I don't know, probably like Instagram.
Okay.
Like I have such a, I don't know, I'm not gonna go on social media today.
You have your digital detox day, and then all of a sudden your phone just pops up.
Right. So like one day you won't hear from me, and the next day I'll be like, hey, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? How about now?
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you and the work that you're doing. And really, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are in need of what you do. There's we have a whole world of suffering around us, and the work continues. Especially the work that we do and the work that you do, especially. And I'm so grateful to have people like you in this world that are doing what you do.
Likewise, Dave. Likewise, Dave. Your classes are amazing, and you're a gifted teacher. And anyone watching this already knows that. They already know they're lucky to have you. But it makes me really happy to know there's good people in the world sharing these tools.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Well, take care.